Sorry to disappoint you. So what was your expectation? Nah, I'm just an everyday dude. Oh, you expected perfection? This is what Christianity is supposed to be like. I make mistakes. Like lots of mistakes. I'm just trying to do the best that I can do. I guess I'm just imperfectly human. Welcome back to another episode of the Imperfectly Human podcast. I am your host, Mr. Daley, and this is a transparent walk with me. So join me as I journey through. We've got a lot to talk about, some fun stuff to talk about this week. This is episode 2 of season 3. Hope you enjoyed the first week back. I know we've been gone a while, but we're back. Consistency is back. So, before we jump into the podcast, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. I don't know where you're listening to this on. You could be listening on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, wherever you are listening to this show. I would like you to take some time out, scroll back to the main page, hit that subscribe button, maybe even leave a review. Look, I welcome the honest feedback, but the platform needs the feedback. The feedback is what helps us grow, and the feedback is what gets us noticed by the major platforms. So I would appreciate the review. I would appreciate the subscription. Do your thing. Help your boy grow. So, hey, this week, we're going to kick this show off with some daddy dilemmas. Well, I say daddy dilemmas. There's only one dilemma I'm going to talk about right now. So I got a big family. Let's say that. Your boy's been busy. I've got my three daughters and my son. And my third daughter, my 5-year-old. Listen, people. I'm being bullied by my 5-year-old. I'm not embarrassed to say this. I'm being bullied by my 5-year-old. This girl has got me on the ropes. I don't understand what's going on. So let me be more specific with what's going on. So, of recent, I don't know how we got here, so let me put some context, just because I don't want the internet going mad, going like, I ain't trying to ruin my reputation here, people thinking I'm going around here with dry feet. But what had happened was, there was, I can't remember, I think it may have been when I was doing some construction work in a house, and I must have come in and I must have taken off my shoes and socks, and your boy's feet were dry. Let's be real. Your boy's feet were dry, and that was the beginning of the torment. I mean, this girl has been relentlessly hitting me with just jokes. She's got jokes for days. They started off basic, kind of what I would expect from a 5-year-old. That's cool. Oh, daddy, your feet are as white as the walls. I was like, yeah, I could take that. Oh, daddy, your feet are as white as snow. Or no, it was like, your feet are as white as Elsa's snow, because she's into Frozen or at the moment or whatever. Your feet are as white as Elsa's snow. Okay, cool. Then she starts getting creative. I'd be saying something and she'd be like, yeah, but daddy, you can't talk because your feet look like your laptop screen, or your feet look like the background on your laptop screen. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You can't be coming at me with shots like that. So that was the other one. I'm trying to remember them, but this girl gets creative with these disses. I'm like, seriously, I'm really out here getting brushed by a 5-year-old, and I think there was one day I tried to hit her with a comeback, and let me not lie, she's got comebacks for days. Like, as soon as you say something, I don't know what it is. This girl's just built different, but she's got comebacks for days. So as soon as you say something, she's already got a comeback lined up. I don't know whether she just lays in her bed thinking about what she, like, okay, I'm going to say this. He might try and say this, and I'm going to navigate, and I'm going to move over here. If he says this, I've got this response. I don't know. This girl might be up all night strategizing how she's just going to break me down, because this girl is relentless. She just goes for me. Everything is about my feet. I can't say anything. Oh, but your feet are so dry. Your feet are so dry, and they look like this. Your feet look like this. Your feet look like that. I'm like, chill. I tried to come back, tried to say something. I can be petty. I'm not gonna front. I can be petty, and I was like, okay, the onslaught is on. I'm losing this. This girl is taking me out. She's not relenting. Every day she's got me. Right, I'm gonna say something. So I must have said, oh yeah, but you look at you with your little dry lips. And then she paused and she stopped and she was like, Daddy, that's not something fathers are supposed to say to their daughters. And she had this look on her face, as if to say, why would you go there? Why would you say something about me? Why would you respond? Why would you even lower yourself to get into a back and forth with a 5-year-old? That's what she looked at me like. And I started to feel guilty, and I was like, oh, okay. And then she went, anyway, and your feet look, and then she just went off. And I was like, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, I'm a good guy. I'm a good dad. I look after her. I take her places. I buy her stuff. We have fun. We watch movies together. We do daddy-daughter things. We have a good time. I buy her a lot of stuff, but let's not go there, because that's probably part of the bullying as well, because this girl knows how to wrangle me into buying random stuff. I think her older siblings laugh, because they know every time I go out with this girl, I'm gonna come back home and she's gonna have something new in her hands. We might have just gone out to get some food, and she will come back with a soft toy or something, because she has managed to pry my wallet out of my hands. It's not like she's actually going and pay for it. She's just like, she's managed to get me to get my wallet out and buy her this thing. So I don't know. Are there other guys in this position? Are there other fathers that suffer an endless assault from their precious little princess? And don't get me wrong, my older girls are my little princesses too. My little boys, my little prince. It's just, I can't go around going, I can go to my 18, well, she's going to be 18 soon, but, oh, daddy's little princess. She'll just look at me like, listen, don't go saying that. But yeah, they're my precious little princesses, all of them. But has anyone got a 5-year-old or a child in that age range, a daughter in that age range, that torments them, and you can't say anything back? You just have to sit there and take the insults. And I'm going to start cataloging these. These might become a little segment called guess what she said this week? Because every week, every day, there is something about my dry feet. We're going to stop there. If you do have, if you do have kids that are tormenting you like mine are, hit me up. At DY Daley on Instagram, at DY Daley on Twitter. Reach out, hit me up, let me know, help me feel better so that I don't feel like I'm the only one that's getting tormented by their child. Anyway, I realized last week that an hour and a half of you listening to me can sometimes be a bit challenging. So I'm going to set myself a goal to try and keep the podcast to a reasonable length, because I know some of you are trying to do this in between stuff. You're jumping in between activities and tasks, and maybe taking kids to you might be on a school run, you might be in between football, basketball, whatever it may be. So I want to make sure that you can enjoy your listening experience, and you don't have to chop this up into like 15 pieces just to listen. So I'm going to try and be a bit more conscious of time, because last week I know I had a lot to say and the time ran away with me. I'm not going to let that happen this time. So I'm going to be a bit more consistent with timekeeping and making sure we stick to schedule. Okay, moving on. Daley Perspective. So this week, well, I say this week, it's been more than this week. I think it's been on for the last couple of weeks. Anyway, for anyone that hasn't been sleeping under a rock, you would have seen a show, or it's not just a show, but it's been in the news. But a show that spurred it all on, that brought it all to the forefront, was a show called Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. But this post office scandal has been going on best part of 20, it's coming up to, I think it's coming up to 25 years. 25 years. So back in 1999, the post office commissioned a new accounting system from, clearly they would have put it out to tender. I believe the winning bid was Fujitsu. Fujitsu developed this system. The system was called the Horizon Accounting Software. They implemented it, deployed it. Now, between 1999 and 2015, over 900 sub-postmasters were prosecuted for theft, false accounting, and fraud based on the information that was coming out of this software. So they would go to submit their transactions at the end of the day or the end of the week, whatever it was. And the system would be like, there's a shortfall in cash. So they would probably, they would check it over and over again and be like, this don't make no sense, but the system is telling me that there's a shortfall. They would make the phone calls and say, hey, what's going on? The system tells me there's a shortfall. I can't see this. Am I doing something wrong? I'm following all the instructions. I'm doing everything as it's telling me to. It's telling me there's a shortfall. Long and short of it, these people were then told, no, the system is right. Clearly, there's money missing. You lot are trying a ting. You lot are trying to... you're trying to jack the post office, and you're trying to scam and make some money. You're stealing the money. You're falsifying accounts. You are committing fraud, basically. So a ton of these people were then prosecuted. over these things. Some committed suicide. Some people lost their jobs. Some lost their houses. Some were financially ruined, and some were even put in jail. So around 2013, some postmasters started to raise their concerns, and they were like, hey, something's not right. This can't be, 900 people cannot be colluding together to commit fraud, or 900 people could not independently be committing fraud, all doing the same exact thing. Too much of a coincidence. So everyone started complaining. Investigations kicked off, legal proceedings started to kick off, and people were like, no, something is not right here. We've raised this, we've been going on about this, we've been saying that this thing isn't right. It's been over 10 years. Someone's going to have to answer for this. Someone needs to explain what is going on. This thing doesn't work. This thing is mash up. You're blaming people. You're putting people in jail. You're ruining people's lives. We don't believe people are doing this. We believe this is the software. So, and amongst all of this, the post office, senior leadership within the post office were standing behind their argument that there was absolutely nothing wrong with the software, saying it's the sub-postmasters, these guys are crooks, they're criminals, prosecute them, lock them up, throw away the key, all of that stuff. So fast forward, I believe in 2019 there was a settlement. There was a group litigation that was brought. So I think it's a group of 555 sub-postmasters. They brought a lawsuit, and they were awarded 58 million out of court settlement. But by the time the legal costs were deducted and everything, I think each person got 20 grand. But this was by no means compensation for what they'd suffered. I mean, some people had been to jail. Some people had been made bankrupt. Some people had lost everything. Some people had lost their homes. All of that stuff. 20 grand was not going to bring that back. Then that made no difference to the fact that these guys also had convictions. So even though some people were not imprisoned, they still had criminal convictions for fraud, theft, false accounting, etc. So that 20 grand does not... So yeah, you might have got a 20 grand settlement, but you were still on paper a criminal. You still had a criminal record. So people felt, hey, this isn't enough. Anyway, fast forward a few months, and in February 2020, a government inquiry starts, and that government inquiry starts to look at how the whole thing was managed. How did we end up where we were? What would I hear this thing so many times, but the systemic failures that resulted in these people being convicted. And it was seen there is no complete resolution to this, and until the truth is fully uncovered, these guys haven't really had justice. Now, the interesting thing of all this was all going on quietly in the background. I don't believe this was never big news. They just allowed this to bubble in the background because as far as they were concerned, they wanted to justify it as though these individuals had committed crimes. Now, I believe the public inquiry is still going on. But what's made things more interesting, obviously, was this show, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Now, the central narrative of this documentary or docuseries, it's not even a docuseries, sorry, it's a drama. It's a 4-part drama series that ITV commissioned and put together. It centers around Mr. Bates, Alan Bates. And it's about him leading the fight against the post office and seeking justice. Now, let me be honest, I have not watched it. I know the story only because it happened during my time. And to be fair, and you know, you may agree, you may disagree, but I know enough of the story to know that what happened was dead wrong, and I'll explain why my views are such. But it basically depicted the struggles of the sub-postmasters that were wrongfully accused and everything they faced and what happened to them financially, emotionally, the social damage. Because some postmasters their kids were being bullied at school. Their houses, you know, they were being tormented in their houses. They had to leave. They had to move homes. It was that bad because they were painted as being criminals. Now, if you know the post office is this thing that's been somewhat the cornerstone. Like, you can go to, if you want to live in a village in the UK, go and live in a village. And the first thing people say about these little quaint villages is, oh, it's one of those villages that has just one shop, a pub, and a post office. You know, the post office has been like a cornerstone of society in England for a long time. It's old people go there to do their collect their pensions, all of that kind of stuff. So immediately, as soon as you start to say that someone is defrauding the post office, people are going to immediately think, oh, they're defrauding me of my pension, or they're going to link it to something because it's been part of the fabric of British society for a long time. Now, many people will not have known the true story because we only know what we're told in the media, unless you work in the industry or unless you understand how these things work. You're not privy to the detail because a lot of these things are protected by non-disclosure agreements and contractual rules that ensure that people cannot speak about certain things. And only when the public inquiry or a legal case is brought and say someone is convicted, then that's when things start to come to light. So people won't have really known the details of what these guys faced. But as you start to look into it, as you start to, you know, for those of you who aren't familiar with IT, the IT industry and software development and all of those and what comes with it, watch the show and get an understanding of what happened. I think it's easy for all of us to put ourselves in their position. If you found out, you knew you were doing everything right, but this system is accusing you or saying that you your money, the money in your business is that you're managing, the business you're managing is short, and you know that you have a responsibility, and this is something that's going to be watched, and you think you're doing something wrong, and you have to compensate, you have to put it in. These people were putting their own money in to balance the books. Meanwhile, they weren't doing anything wrong, but they were putting their own money in to try and balance the books because they were so scared. They were nervous. They were afraid. They didn't know. No one wanted to face criminal prosecution when they're just trying to do their job. So anyway, watch it, get your own perspective, understand it. But I think the show did a great thing in terms of bringing it to the forefront. Obviously, in recent weeks, we've seen that it's been debated in Parliament. They're talking about the inadequacies in the compensation that the victims have received. They're talking about quashing the convictions for all the sub-postmasters because I think less than 10% had their convictions reversed. All of them need to have their convictions reversed. And, they were talking about how poorly it had all been managed. The fact that the post office settled out of court with the 555 complainants means that they understand that they were in the wrong. Now, what has come out over the years is that the Horizon system was flawed. So this is where I start to get into, because I'm going to tackle this in two parts. So, first part for me, being in the IT industry for over 20 years. Let me just explain. So as I've worked in a number of roles in IT, but let's talk about what I do now. As in the space of business analysis, we work with the customer to understand their needs and to translate this into something that a developer can build. Then we go through a process of testing the system with the development team, professional testers, and the business to make sure that it is working how it should. We test a number of scenarios. So you could do something called scenario-based testing. Or in this world now where you have there's a concept of agile development. I don't want to go into the details because it's not that kind of podcast. But just let me simplify it. With agile development, you build, if you imagine discrete blocks of development, and in each discrete block of the development, you get functionality, and you build on functionality incrementally. So every block is supposed to make the overall product better and move it one step further towards the final finished product. That's how it works. So you test the functionality in incremental steps. Now, there are two types of tests that you do, or actually we can go even further than that. Let's because testing breaks down into a number of different spaces. You have pen testing, which covers things like cybersecurity and all those kinds of tests. Performance testing. You might have things like smoke testing. Not going to get into the details of all of those. Let's focus on system testing, integration testing, regression testing, and user acceptance testing. So system testing, you will test the component that you've built. So making sure that functionality for that component works as you expect it to. It meets the specifications, it meets the requirements, it does what it's supposed to do. What it says on the tin is what it does. Integration testing. Now, let's say part of my system needed to talk to a foreign exchange system, and we had to build a connection between those two systems. We need to test that integration between those two systems work. That's what is dealt with in integration testing. I believe the Horizon system would have had to integrate with not only some of the core post office systems. It would have had to integrate with other accounting systems and so on. It would have had to, because the post offices also handle foreign exchange, so I'm sure it would have had to integrate with some sort of forex system and all of that kind of stuff. So I believe there would have been a level of integration testing done as well. But that's not what we're focusing in on. It could have been part of the problem. It could have been that the integration wasn't right and that information wasn't being passed between the two systems correctly, which led to inaccuracies in the data that was being passed from one system to the other. Possibly, just speculating, because I haven't seen the details of what caused the issue. But the other part of it is, so what we've talked about system testing, we've talked about integration testing, regression testing. So regression testing is when you build something. So when you build a new component, the next block, and you deploy that across the solution, you regression test. You make sure that everything else that you have built and tested and that you may have already deployed into the live environment, by live environment we mean you've made it available for customers to use, you make sure that all of that still works and this individual component still works. Regression testing. So that's the going back and testing all the old stuff that you've built. And then you kind of do your end-to-end test to make sure old and new work together. You then have the concept of user acceptance testing. So, and this is where, this is the bit for me that I believe, this is where I believe someone dropped the ball. Because it's quite easy for things to slip through the net when you test components in isolation. I might test that I can I can purchase a stamp and I can select a first class stamp, purchase it. It will print off that stamp or whatever, and it will allocate the price of that stamp into the end of day accounts or whatever. I don't know the details of how the system works, but let's just assume that it does that. We can test that in isolation, but let's take that individual transaction and let's put it in a real world scenario where it is one of many things that someone may do as part of a transaction. So in user acceptance testing, you would want to see test scripts that define complex scenarios that users would have to go through on a day-to-day basis. Dare I say, I would even expect someone to have to have written a test that potentially where you simulate a working day and test the system in a somewhat pseudo live environment. And it's then where you will see things start to fall out. Now, let's pause that, because for me, that was one of the big things, that big red flags for me, was that, well, clearly this system has to have been tested, and if testing was conducted properly, you should have picked up on the fact that something was wrong. So there's that. Tie that in with some of the comments that we've heard in court recently, where the bosses of Fujitsu are saying that senior leadership at the post office knew that the system was flawed, yet they still deployed it. So clearly, if my assumption is correct, there must have been a number of defects identified during testing, and someone said, hey, these defects are not high enough priority for us to delay the implementation of the system. Deploy the system anyway, and we will fix these defects in live. We will roll out patches. We will do whatever to fix these defects whilst the system is live. If that is the situation, whoever made those decisions is culpable. At the end of the day, you made a decision, and that decision, you clearly did not follow through on what you said you were going to do, and you've put people in a position where they have picked up the tab for your poor decision. You are responsible. I then decided, so I'm going to pause there. Because I'm not going to jump into it. At the end of the day, we know the outcome of this is that we know that the people that there were big mistakes made by senior leadership in the post office. I believe Fujitsu have to bear responsibility for this as well. So I would say that there were big mistakes made by leadership at Fujitsu. I think there was the project was clearly flawed. Testing was flawed. I would love to see some of the project documentation and see the risks that were raised, see whatever assumptions and dependencies were made. Love to see their RAID log and see what they captured. Would love to see whether there was a lessons learned and just I would like to see the audit trail of what was raised throughout that project, because it will clearly point to where the issue was. I wouldn't be surprised if the requirements were flawed as well, because a lot of the time, organizations don't even bother with requirements. They think they know, or they just say, we know what we want you to build this. And then they just muddle along and say, oh, that's not quite what we expected. Do this and that should fix it. So you then just get this sort of sticky plaster approach to building or designing a system. Whereas if you try to understand what you're trying to solve from the outset, you can write a good set of requirements to make sure that you can test and you can define and build for every scenario. Anyway, we're going back into that again, but let's pull back. So the other thing I wanted to consider was, well, if I put this, I've already said my perspective that I think there were some mistakes made from a Fujitsu side, from a post office senior leadership side. The other side of things for me is, well, now that you know that the mistakes have been made, you know the extent of the scandal, you know the impact on the individual innocent lives, you know there were a bunch of systemic failures. Where does the buck stop? How do you redress these people? And if I look at it from a biblical perspective, as I like to, Just taking a quick one. Exodus 23, 1-9 talks about bearing false witness and wrongfully convicting innocent people based on false evidence. Well, this is clearly the case. Proverbs 17:15 says, acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent, both are detestable to the Lord. So in this case, again, we find the innocent people have been condemned. I mean, people have lost their lives, people have lost their livelihoods, people's reputations have been destroyed, people have been falsely imprisoned. Deuteronomy 19:16-21 talks about doing unto those. So this is where we start to talk about restitution. It talks about doing unto those who falsely accuse others what would have happened to the falsely accused. Well, we know what happened to the falsely accused. They were imprisoned. They had their reputations ruined. They were financially ruined. Well, from a biblical standpoint, when you bear false witness and you falsely accuse and you're proven to be in the wrong, it says that you should suffer the penalties that your victims would have suffered, or you suffer the consequences that your victims have suffered. I mean, if we talk about fair restitution in the Bible, when someone is guilty of, let's just say someone is guilty of theft, they're required to restore to their victims sometimes 4 or 5-fold what they stole. Is it fair that these post office, the senior leadership in the post office, have walked away with ridiculous bonuses? Shareholders in Fujitsu, people in senior leadership in Fujitsu, they've all had wonderful bonuses, and they've made billions off the back of this. Yet these people have lost their livelihoods. They've lost their lives. Is that fair? So what is fair restitution in this? I know we're talking about, the government are now talking about bigger settlements and all of that stuff. But does that really, really balance the scale? I mean, from a biblical standpoint, I believe that justice needs to be served to those who were innocently convicted. I believe that a fair investigation, a clear, well-structured, and I say fair because the right person, the right people, the decision makers, there needs to be an audit trail that gets back to the people that made the decisions that led to this system being rolled out when it shouldn't have been. And those people should bear the same penalties that their victims have had to suffer. That's the way I see it. Now, some people may say, hey, that's a bit harsh, but I mean, is it though? Is it harsh? Because was it not harsh for an innocent person to have to remortgage their house constantly to the point they lost it? Was it fair that someone was so stressed and so worried they decided to end their own life to stop the suffering? Was that fair? Time and time again, we see these large corporations cause harm and walk away like nothing has happened. No one is truly held accountable. Isn't it time that at least at a minimum send someone to jail? Send someone to jail. At least make them give back the bonuses that they've been given and compensate their victims with those bonuses. At least somewhere, someone has to be found, to be responsible for this. Justice should be served. The victims deserve justice. Just my perspective. So we're jumping into soul searching. So soul searching, as I said, this is the segment of the show where I like to talk about what I've been going through, or what I've been reading, things that have been on my mind as I go through my personal growth journey as a Christian, as I explore scripture. And look, I'm not this dude that's going to sit here and pretend that I've got this perfect walk. There are days I struggle to pray. There are days that I do not pray. And there are days where I struggle to stay, just to read my Bible. I get distracted by work. I get distracted by life. I get distracted by personal finances, the incoming, the outgoing, whatever it may be. These can be big distractions that just knock you off your path. And a while back, I was reading Psalm 90, and Psalm 90 is a psalm by Moses. And there was a part of it that stuck, I guess I can say it stuck out to me. And that part said, it was Psalm 90 verse 12, and it says, "Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom." And I sat back and I was like, well, what does this mean? And it was like, I thought, let me try and dissect it. So we all know, teach us to realize the brevity of life. Teach us to realize how short life is, the briefness of life, how minute, forgive me as I almost knock over my iPad, but teach us to realize how short and how fleeting life is. It's a moment of time. And earlier in the scripture, it talks about how 1,000 years is like a mere. That was a bit of a tongue twister for me. A mere few nights. So 1,000 years is like a few nights to God. That is how much. That's how much outside of time God is. Time cannot even exist without God. God does not exist within time. He exists outside of time. So to him, 1,000 years is nothing. It's like a blink of an eye. So it says, help us to realize how fleeting life is in terms of time, how fleeting, how short it is, so that we may grow in wisdom. And I was like, well, how does knowing how short time is, how will that make me grow in wisdom? So I thought, okay, let me go back. Let me dig back into wisdom. Now, for those who are familiar with my album, I had a song on the album called I Am Wisdom. I Am Wisdom focused on the first 10 chapters of Proverbs. And it was a song written based on those first 10 chapters of the book of Proverbs. And so I went back to Proverbs, and I went to Proverbs 1, verse 7. And right there, that's where you find the scripture that says, the fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. So I thought, right, this is a good place to start. So I took that scripture and I thought, well, what does that actually mean? It says the fear of the Lord. And when we talk about the fear of the Lord, it's not about being scared, because we can read that literally, but the fact is the English language is so limited. The English language does not truly give you the full picture of what that scripture says. So I went back, shout out to, so my brother showed me a YouTube video, and that YouTube video was a lady by the name Tiffany Montgomery, and she was talking about, she was sharing some stuff, but one of the things she shared was this app that she used called Blue Letter Bible. And I thought that thing was so cool. So I went and downloaded it. So I've got to give props. It's not me. It wasn't me. I saw it from Tiffany Montgomery. I thought, cool, I'm going to use that. Boom. Shout out to my brother that showed it to me. Showed me that video, because I wouldn't have found that app if it weren't for that. So anyway, those are my little shout outs to it. But I looked at that, and as part of that, there is this functionality in that app that allows you to look at the original Hebrew. And the original Hebrew, and here goes my attempt to speak Hebrew. So this might come out completely wrong, but hey, let's do it. So I believe it's Yerah Yehovah Reshef De'ah. And that first word, Yerah, is what is translated to the fear or fear. But when you look at it, it's not fear as we know it. It is reverence. It's deep respect. Deep reverence, deep respect. We all know Yehovah. Yes, that's translated to the Lord, but Jehovah. Reshif, I think, I hope I said it right again. That is the part that says, well, Reshif De'er. De'er is knowledge, or also can be translated as wisdom. And when you put that Reshif with it, that's the part that people translate as, I guess, the foundation or the beginning. So a lot of people translate as the fear of the Lord is the beginning of true knowledge, or the beginning of wisdom. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. When you actually look at it, Ye'ah Yehovah Reshif De'er, that actually, when you break it down and look at each of these parts, it actually translates to the respect of the Lord is the choice part of knowledge. Or, in other words, the respect or the reverence of the Lord is the best part of knowledge. So, or if we want to swap knowledge with wisdom, the respect or the deep reverence of the Lord is the best part of wisdom. And when I started to put these together, I was like, okay, so wisdom, for me to be wise, wisdom is that deep reverence of the Lord. Knowing that the best part of wisdom is understanding how to revere and respect the Lord. And I guess It's that, well, hey, if I realize how fleeting my life is, I don't want to waste a moment trusting in my own understanding and trusting in my own way and my own will. I would rather understand that by reverencing and respecting the Lord, I am consuming, or I am embedded in the best part of wisdom. Meaning I revere the Lord in my choices. I revere the Lord in my work. I revere the Lord in my marriage. I revere the Lord in my parenting. If I reverence the Lord in every part of my life, that is the best part of wisdom, and that will make my short, brief, fleeting moment of a life better. So by understanding my life is short, by understanding my life is short, I need to learn how to maximize what I get out of that short life. And that's why I want to grow that's why you need to grow in wisdom. That's what Moses was saying. Realize how short your life is, and realize that in order to maximize that short life, you need to grow in wisdom. Well, the only way to grow in wisdom is to reverence the Lord, and to understand that the reverence of the Lord is the best part of wisdom. And I started to, and I'm still, I haven't got it completely figured out. This is what soul searching, this section is, this is what it's for. I'm spilling my thoughts to you as they come to me. Soul searching is me sharing what I'm thinking about. But what I'm thinking about right now is that for me to truly thrive in every part of my short, brief life, I must learn to reverence the Lord, because the reverence of the Lord is the best part of wisdom. So take that and apply it not only to myself as a husband, myself as a father, myself as a man, myself as a community leader, whatever it may be. Apply that reverence of the Lord in every section, because that is where the best part of wisdom is. So with that said, let's bring this show to a close. Where are we? The Imperfect Wrap-Up. So like I said right at the beginning, Daddy Dilemas. Listen, if you got a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, I don't even care. You got a little kid that likes to disrespect. Nah. Let's pull that back. My baby don't disrespect me. She just got some words. She just she's just quick with the comebacks. But if you've got a little kid that likes to just diss you for the fun of it, let me know. Like I said, hit me up on Twitter at DYDaley. Hit me up on Instagram at DYDaley. So I want to hear from my listeners on that one. The Daley Perspective, simple for me. Justice. It is only right that these individuals receive what is rightfully theirs in terms of restitution for the pain, the suffering that they have had to endure, the hardships that they have had to endure, and that those who have falsified information and falsely accused and put these people in a position where they have been falsely convicted, those people should suffer the consequences. It shouldn't be a slap on the wrist. Make sure that corporations understand that they cannot continue to put people through pain for profit. Simple. And and I'd like to just close it off with, look, I know we're all on a journey, and you may be a Christian, you may not be a Christian, but if you are looking to maximize life, this brief moment that we have called life, because the Bible says that our time on this earth is short, but there is eternity waiting for us with God. For those who are His children, those who have called Him Father, for those who say Abba Father, there is eternity. We will be with Him in eternity. But for this brief moment on this earth, if you want to maximize it, it says that the reverence of the Lord is the best part of wisdom. So look at how you can apply that to your life. And if you don't know who the Lord is, get to know. It's not that hard. You don't have to do anything complicated. Pick up your Bible, read, and it's a simple prayer to ask God to just reveal Himself to you. Nothing complex. And I hope that more people take this step, because we're in time, and the time that we are in this world right now, where we are on the human timeline, let's put it that way. We're experiencing some seriously dark times. And I believe we need more people to walk by faith and not by sight. So with that said, I'm going to sign out. I've been Mr. Daley. I will still be Mr. Daley. I always am Mr. Daley. I will catch you on the next episode. Take it easy. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Imperfectly Human podcast. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast. You can do this on your favorite streaming platforms.